good morning, your afternoon to Europe. Let's talk about the next big problem. We're all working on agents to get agents into the company. And this, of course, shows us that this is scalable. But the question is, with all these agents, who is accountable for the outcome? Is it at the end the human? Do we have to hire more humans to manage all these agents? Before we really want to answer this question, let's understand what intelligence and accountability really means. So intelligence is basically executes tasks. We could have marketing agents create and send email campaigns. We could have an engineering agents run automated code tests, And accountability is then set goals, measure the outcome, and decide the next steps. For example, for the marketing agents, we could have increased email click-through by 10%, or for our engineering agents, we could have keep error rate under 1%. So you would say that's the job of a human. But think about that. When we have all these different agents, humans most probably come to their limits of really doing this. We have too many decisions to take. We have inconsistency. Elizabeth maybe decides in this context differently than me. And overall, we can't really scale with this complexity. So we really think this needs a different solution. And we think we have to put a layer between the human and the agent. And this is not another agent, and I will explain that in a moment. It's really a digital head that owns the number, decides, delegates, and works towards your goal. Think about it like the manager of the agent. So why is this not just another agent? We all love this LLM-based agents. We're all working with it every day and so on. But we all encountered, that what can happen when you ask 3 times the same question, you're maybe slightly getting 3 times different answers. And this is okay for this type of technology, but maybe it's not okay when you expect that the machine, owns the outcome. Then you want absolutely make sure when you ask 3 times the same question that you get 3 times the same number. To really achieve this, you need a different infrastructure, and we will talk about that in a moment. This infrastructure has to make sure that we have a governed meaning, that we have explainable logic. That means the entire thing is auditable. It's important that we have measurable metrics, of course, and we need a clear authority mandate. So for example, we maybe want to say at the end, okay, the machine is allowed to do these campaigns, which we have seen for this amount of money, but if it is over that, then of course, we want to involve a human. So how does this architecture basically look like? So you see here this diagram. It basically has 3 components. So at the bottom, we see the business environment. That's basically our company, where we have the different function or the entire company. In every function, like marketing, sales, HR, whatever, we may have different tools. Let's say in marketing, we have HubSpot and our entire marketing stack. We take this data from all these different tools, into what we call a semantic digital twin. It's basically a representation, a digital representation of your entire business. With everything, what happens, what's in all the tools, where people click, whatever it is, it's in this semantic digital twin. This provides a digital company for the digital authority, which then can operate into this environment. Basically, when we have the data in, we can measure the situation of a goal. What is it? What is a goal target? And then the digital authority can deliberate and make decisions what it has to do next. And this then, drives the agents, all the agents and humans you have in your company, which then basically execute. And you may have heard the term agent harness a lot. It's a lot discussed because it orchestrates agents, the memory, and so on. And this is much more the operational environment. The loop we are for is a long-term loop to really make sure we are achieving the goal, and the agent just does some task, and then we're looking, and are we there or the next step. The second very, very important part is, when we really look at it, not hallucinates, is that at the core of this semantic digital twin is an SQL ontology. So it's not just grounding something. What's great on SQL is it's a structured query language. It's basically the way how you use to manage and work with digital data. That SQL is always right. You know, whatever do, it can't hallucinate. The question is, do you have the right SQL? But this is a much, much easier problem to handle, as you will see in a moment in our live demos. Okay, so of course, when we really want to run towards long-term goals, it's not just one, we set a goal, then the digital authority does something, and then, you know, we have achieved. Of course, it's an accountability loop, you know. We always take an action, then something is hopefully happened in the business environment, then we measure, you know, what's going on, and we can compare it against the target, and then we can make the next decision. And the good thing is this system, of course, is also learning. So this digital authority becomes your best employee even over time because it learns from the action, it knows what worked, what not worked, and so on. I want to make one important note here. What you will see today is basically the semantic digital twin. We will show you that, and the digital authority. What we will not show you today is, you know, how we really close the loop. And the main reason is because we wanted to now start to really work with our beta customers, because we think the agent revolution we all working on is in reality an evolution. And we really have to take our customers we work with at the point where they are. Not everyone today has, you know, the 1,000 agents, you know, deployed. So we can already provide value by the digital twin and the authority on top. You will see this. Elizabeth will demo that in a moment. And then we take, you know, our lead customers with us to really help them to become a complete entire native company. And we want to do that in the second step, you know, up to end of this year. So let's zoom into the semantic digital twin for just a moment. So what you see here on the bottom is the semantic digital twin. And when you basically move in, you see what's called here lead, campaign, account, opportunity, revenue, invoice, and so on. You can describe every company more or less with around 100 business objects. And you can see here lead and campaign, basically, plus some other, describe marketing. And we can have now a marketing authority basically owning lead and campaign. We can have an sales authority own account and opportunity. We can have finance, revenue, and invoice. We can have product, feature, and release. And the important part is when I ask later a question, and you will see it, only the respective digital authority is allowed, you know, to really answer and to operate and really change this object when we later do, you know, automatic campaigns and things like that. So that's the fundamental way the digital twin gives the virtual environment in what these authorities can operate. And then you see on the top a value stream. You will see this also in the demo. This is just our way how you really organize a business where these authorities should live. We call it a value stream because it can be your team, marketing, sales, but it can be also a business process. It's the environment where you create respective value. This is why we call it a value stream. So when we now have these different functional digital authorities, we can start with one, maybe with marketing. But we can add, you know, sales, success, product, engineering, finance, operations. So we basically have an entire company, you know, which can be orchestrated and managed by these digital authorities. And this has a big impact. Because when we really look how we today manage accountability in companies, then you will find more or less in all companies a pyramid organization. We have the top management, you know, and the top management sets the goals, and then we have the middle layer, many layers of middle management. They take the goal, you know, and they, you know, downstream give the goals up to we come to the doers, if you like, and then we have upstream the reporting. And we really need this to manage, and between, you know, on one layer, we have to delegate and we have to explain, from marketing to product and so on. When we're introducing the digital authorities, we don't need this middle management layer anymore. This is all done, via the digital authorities. They talk to the functional, to the one, the product talks to the marketing or to finance. They manage this all. You just need the top layer, and you eventually need the bottom layer, which can be humans, of course, and agents. So we're going from a pyramid organization to a flat organization. And that, of course, has severe impact to a lot of KPIs in your organization. For example, revenue per FTE. So let me summarize this. We on our way to delivering an operating system for AI native companies. These companies, will have three bigger components. On the one hand side, the digital twin of the business. So everything, what's happening, is in this digital twin. This is the ground floor for the authorities to really operate, make decisions. That's then our digital authorities. And they basically then, deploy the different resources, mainly agents, but could be also humans. And this is what I wanted to show you. And now, Elizabeth, take it from here, enough theory, let's see it in action.